Great, so welcome. It's really lovely to see so many people who are interested in getting bored. Have you bored yourself to death ready for this? You have? Okay, great. So who is bored right now? I want honesty. Nobody's bored? Okay, okay, great. I've sort of failed, but sort of haven't. I don't know. Who's been bored in the last hour? Yeah, we got a couple of boredoms here, yeah. Great. The last sort of 48 hours? Wow. That's pretty good. It's over, that's the end. We may all leave. Cool, well that's good. So today obviously I am talking about boredom and how my mission really is to help organisations bore their employees and their teams, so really that we can become a little bit more creative. So this is not rocket science. I know that we've had a little bit of rocket science in the past couple of days. It's really basic stuff, so hopefully you won't be completely blown away after this talk, but you will have a moment of like, oh yes, I want to try and bore people a little bit more in work. So what is boredom? So here it talks about boredom is a state of mind characterized by the lack of interest, stimulation, or challenge. So those who put their hand up just now that said they've been bored in the last 48 hours, did you get rid of your phones? No. Did you sort?
I was in the tube, so there was no connection anyway.
Cool. You know what? The tube is a great place to be bored, right? Unless you've downloaded a podcast or something like that. But you're actually forced not to have those kind of pings, those LinkedIn messages. Sometimes I like to prepare a text in the tube because I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit bored. I'll just see if my mum's all right or something like that. But that's still not true boredom. When we're in work, I think we rarely get bored because we have got so much stuff to do all the time. It's either our own sort of goals and ambitions and wanting to get stuff done, but who gets to do that nowadays? Or it's kind of the higher realms trying to get us to do something, or there's a problem in BAU, in the business, in the production, whatever it might be. So it's actually quite difficult to be truly bored. And if you talk about the subject or you bring it up, you're like, you know what, guys, today we're just going to be bored, then it's kind of a bit of a taboo subject. Because people are like, well, I don't want to be bored. I'm here to do work. And what will my manager say if I'm just sitting here being like, oh, here we go. We're just sitting here being bored, embracing the stillness of boredom. Well, I did a bit of Googling because I thought I was a bit bored. I was like, that's all right. I've got Google. Google's my best friend. And I noticed I could do a puzzle. That was pretty cool. I could play a game. What else could I do? What else have we got there? Listen to a podcast. I could maybe read. I could build a fort. I was like, hell yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to build a fort. I was like, this is amazing. I never thought about doing that. But instead, I went crazy. I binged on a TV show. I did a little bit of exercise because I thought you've got to do exercise before you binge, right? Because you feel much, much better about it. But what I didn't do, and this is kind of a journey a few years ago, was just sit there and be like, oh, this is really nice. I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just being. And so I started to think, God, when we go into our organisations, and actually I'm just pummeling people with, I don't know, let's pretend we're doing Scrum, like sprint reviews, sprint planning, dailies, we've got to get stuff done, we've got to have a goal, we've got to keep doing and producing. I was like, my brain looks a little bit like a scribble-thon. Remember the keynote in the beginning where you've got the idea, then you've got shed loads of things happening, and then you've got the product. That shed loads of things happening is not boredom, that is crazy. Can you relate to this? That's how it feels to me, anyway. And actually, it was quite funny. So as I've been doing quite a lot of research, I'm getting some weird feeds on like my Instagram and stuff, and I noticed that in South Korea, they have a boredom competition. I was like, hello. this sounds amazing. Yeah, I loved it. It was really exciting. I was like, this is really cool. So basically, they had 4,000 people apply, and I think 170 people got in. And the idea was just to embrace stillness and be bored. Now, they went a little bit OTT. They got heart rate monitors and all that sort of stuff, and that's fine to see how truly bored you are. But I was like, this is amazing. You know what? If there can be a competition on it, why can't we bring that into our workplace? Why can't we compete to just be, punto, full stop, just be, right? So I started to experiment with teams. And like I said just now, I didn't go in and be like, hi guys, you know what, we're going to spend the next hour just being bored, because I'd probably get the sack. But what I did do is try and give people their time back. Now, before I jump ahead, actually, I'll tell you a little story. So I'm quite lucky because I have an inbuilt stress monitor that seems to be quite different to other people. And that is that as soon as I'm stressed and I don't actually realise, because I think sometimes we don't realise, because we've got, fun can be stressful, can't it? It's like, oh, I've got so many exciting things happening, and it's a bit overwhelming. But luckily, I fall downstairs and I fall upstairs. So in the last 7 days, I've fallen down 2 flights of stairs, which, by the way, is extremely painful. I have a rather northern light-shaped bruise in certain areas of my body, and a lot of damage on my arm, but thankfully it's sort of gone down now. I stood on glass, which went through my foot 2 days after I fell down the stairs, and a whole bunch of other things in. But that's really helpful to me, and actually to my wife. She's like, well, maybe you should just calm down. Maybe you should be a little bit bored because you haven't realised. So I find that helpful. So if anybody else has a correlation of the more things they have on, the more times they actually fall downstairs, then I recommend that's a good trigger point in the monitor. Anyway, putting that aside, just thought I'd share that. Right, this is a drawing of a chair. Some of you just now got a post-it note slapped on the side of your chair. You guys looked like really creative, bold people, so I thought I'd put it there. So if you are one of those people, if you could grab that post-it note, hold it up in the air. Great. And all I would like you to do, it's nothing too scary, is just to read it out. So shout it out. I've tried to do it phonetically, which I don't know if that works or not. Go. That worked really nicely. Did everybody get all those names?
Not yet.
You got 2? Okay, so that's all right. I've got them written up here. So, nice bit of interaction, really. Thomas Edison, Josephine Concran, Louis Braille, Wright brothers, Carl Benz, Anna Connolly, Tabitha Babbitt, Alice Parker. What do these girls and guys have in common? Inventors. Amazing. Do they have anything else in common?
They're dead.
They are dead. Thank you. They are dead inventors. What do we have in common with dead inventors? We don't think enough. Did they have mobile phones? Did they have the old WW as W, as my neighbour says? No, they didn't. So I want to focus on one of these people. I want to focus on Josephine Concran. Does anybody know what she invented? No? No guesses? Don't ask Google, no. I'll reenact it. This is, from this angle, it might be better. Okay, that's fine. It's what, cheese grater, did you say? That, if only. God, she didn't invent that. Okay, well, let me take you to that time. So in December 1886, are you there? Mm-hmm. Cool. Josephine, what I didn't realise is that she wasn't bent over the kitchen sink scrubbing dishes. That I wasn't grating cheese. She wasn't doing that. She was actually she invented the dishwasher, basically. Thank the Lord. I'll be off. yeah, she wasn't bent over the kitchen sink washing dishes. She actually was an heiress. She was doing very well for herself. And she was entertaining, apparently, a group of her friends and family. And somebody came and served her dinner. She gasped. There was a chip. There was a chip on her crockery, her china, this amazing stuff that she had been passed down from generation to generation. And she was just horrified by this. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe I've got a chip on this plate that I've, had for thousands of years. She's like, we've got to make a change. We cannot keep washing this up by hand. And all my friends, they have also got to have this change. They've got to, have these problems as well. So she had this problem on her hand of her dishes being cracked. And that's when, over several weeks, months, years, who knows, she came up with this idea of a dishwasher. And obviously, first of all, it was an MVP. Woohoo! In the true sense. Yay! It was mechanical. So she washed up the dishes. Anyway, so that solved her problem. It's also great because it introduced dishwashers. I mean, I can't imagine what I would do with my life if I didn't have a dishwasher. I mean, it's the loading which is great, right? It's the unloading which is a bit rubbish. So we still need to solve that. But one thing... So one thing out of this that I noticed when I was doing this research and looking into boredom and looking into teams, that there are three things. There was definitely not PowerPoint. Doesn't stand for that. The first one I just gave away. There was a problem. There was a problem on our hands, and we all have problems every single day. Like, the beauty of working in agile teams, agile organisations, or not, is that you've got a problem, and it comes over, and the idea is that we solve that problem. Like, that's a cool thing, right? People often think, don't give me problems, give me answers. And you're like, well, actually, give me problems, because I like to solve them. And so does my team. Great! So we all have problems. She also had a purpose. Her purpose was that she could serve dinner and not have to worry about the crockery and things being chipped, right? It was a good purpose. She wanted to help her friends so they didn't have to deal with the same problem and they could look really good in front of each other. And they had this purpose. And I hope that we all have a purpose, whether that's in our personal life, and hopefully we know what our organisation's purpose is and why the heck we're developing certain things. And if we don't, that's a whole different talk and something that you should definitely raise, because that is important. So she had a problem, she had a purpose. We have these things in common with Josephine and with these guys. The other thing that she had, well, I imagine her walking around gardens. She's in a beautiful dress. She is having the time of her life. She's maybe doing a few, grouse or something like that, probably. But she's got time on her hands. She's got time to have dinner parties in some sort of elaborate way. I mean, my friends are lucky if they come round for a cheese sandwich and a beer at 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. Not actual factual, but yes. So she had a bit of time on her hands. She was able to have time to think. That kind of aligned with her purpose and with her problem. So for those that are more visual, these are our problems here. Right? They're a little bit of a squiggly mess. They can certainly feel like that. And our purpose is this arrow here. This is how I see it. And then we've kind of got this circle, this black hole, which is, our time. And often you could look at it in two ways, I guess. The time, the black hole of time, which just gets sucked away. Or the hole, the gate, creating space to be able to think. So I sort of want to do a bit of an exercise now. How much time do I have? No, I've got enough time, cool. So a very short exercise of what this looks like physically. I don't know how well this is going to go, but I'm going to start with this. So can everybody do this? Great. Sort of looks like you're being a bit rude to me. And then we're going to do this. Great. And then can you pick your leg up? Is that, oh yeah, some people are doing this. Let's do this. I don't know, what else should we do? Do this. Can you turn around? Yeah. Great. Yeah, get up, turn around. Ugh. I feel a bit dizzy, so let's stop doing that. Do we think you can sit down now? God, you are a good group. But if we're doing that, do you think you could do that for another 5 minutes? I hope so. Could you do it for another 5 minutes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we could. Yeah. Could you do it for another hour?
Yes.
Do you reckon? Yes. Well, I think your arms will get a little bit heavy. Could you do it for another 8 hours? No break? No, I don't think I could. Could you do it for another, maybe add on, let's say 12 hours? We definitely can't do it for 8. Do you think we could do it for 12? Anybody for 12? Gentleman at the back for 12? No? No, okay, fine. But this is how I see this brain, right? We go to work and we expect people to do that, turning around because we're context switching, for 10, 12 hours, hopefully it's 8 hours, but actually it's longer than that, with no real break. Even our lunch breaks and our tea breaks are usually taken up with, I can't stand this, when your boss comes over and says, oh, do you mind if you just have a little chat about this? And you're like, yes, I mind. I mean, I'm quite direct, so I say, I do mind, yes. And then they carry on talking, and you're like, okay. But we expect that. But physically, if we were to do that, you would never expect someone physically to do that at work all the time. But we expect the organ, the brain in our head, to constantly be on that and have no time to pause. If you think about when we do exercise, the rest days are the bits that do the best work. And it's the same thing with our brain. Those rests, those times to think, those moments of boredom are exactly that, where we do our best work and we become more creative. So, purposely creating space to enable us to get bored, to enrich our creativity. And how do I do this? So I've been doing a bit of experiments, and I did an experiment, in fact, with a global journalism organisation. I can't see, I've worked with somebody who was working there as well, I can't see them now. But anyway, and basically, gave them time to think, gave them time to get bored. And there were so many meetings that we were having that were absolutely pointless. And so what I did was change those. So there were times to go for a walk, do anything but think about this. And actually, when you do that to someone, they just will think, it's like, don't think of an elephant, do not think of an elephant. There are so many elephants in the room right now, it's so annoying. But it's okay to have thoughts and connect them back to work, just write them down. I mean, I have my best ideas come out with, I think somebody was saying, when they're in the shower because they can't do anything else. So giving people that time, it's not rocket science, like I was saying. I'm not going to teach you or tell you anything new here. But it's about getting the boldness to go back to your organisation, to your teams, and saying, actually, we're going to give this time, keep this time that actually was a waste of time in the first place. We were going to a meeting that nobody really knew the purpose of, just to have a bit of space in our brain, because that is invaluable. And giving that black hole that time to actually think and do things differently. Purposeful space for boredom. That was some feedback that I got. They said, God, Helen, I don't know what it is that you do, but I think it's that. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I didn't actually realise until people were starting to say that, and that was really good. So, great. I want to talk very, very, very quickly, just throw this in there, and I was going to have a whiteboard, but I haven't got one, so that's fine, good job I prepared this. This line, there is a fine line to boredom. There is a dark side of boredom, a very dark side, in fact. You can feel lonely, you can feel quite depressed if you get too bored. It can actually lead to substance abuse, and we don't want an organisation on heroin, do we? I mean, let's be honest, that would be the last resort. That's not what I'm going for here. But what I am going for is the other side of boredom. And that is this. Studies have shown that people who experience moderate levels of boredom are most likely to engage in creative thinking and problem solving. That's what we want, moderate levels of boredom. introducing little bite-sized pieces, a little bit like retrospectives or whatever sort of learning activity that you do, little bite-sized chunks and experiments of how we can get a little bit bored in work or how we can give time to think. Hacks. I'm going to wrap up now. So hacks, this acronym I stole from somebody called Hannah who does a program around creative ID. She's created this over the last 15 psychometric tool on how people are creative and the different styles to creativity. I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but really worth looking up. And hacks, she talks about habits anyone can keep. So I thought if we can have habits anyone can keep for boredom, then hopefully that's a good takeaway. The first one is purposeful boredom. I've said it 1,000 times, let's create purposeful boredom within the workplace. Now, you will get pushback on this, because leadership will be like, oh my God, you're telling me that you're going to give an hour of purposeful boredom, that is costing me a lot of money. Well, that meeting that you just had, that we got no outcome to, absolutely pointless, barely an agenda, that cost us about 5,000 grand? 5,000 grand? About 5 grand, let's call it. So being able to quantify it and say, well, actually, the beauty of this boarding, yes, it might cost a lot of money because, there's 6 of us and we're going for a walk. But what about the creativity, the ideas that come out of that? That can be the change. And more often than not, I go into a lot of organisations. I used to do a lot of I was working for myself, and you'd see products. It's like what Pavel was talking about. Products just coming out of nowhere, this, that, and the other. But are they truly good products? Are they truly innovative in the way that they are? Or are they just ideas that have come up? They're the first 3 ideas that somebody thought of. Well, what if we could come up with 100 ideas whilst we're getting a little bit bored? How could that change the way that we develop things and look at things a bit differently? The next thing here, some hacks. So purposeful boarding, changing the meetings, inviting a bit of small, bite-sized, 15-minute boredom sessions. Inviting risk. So when I say inviting risk, one side, this is the only thing that I take from the dark side of boredom, is that when you're too bored, then you can be a bit more risky, hence the abuse. But actually, if we could take that risk and say, we've got this crazy idea, shall we see if we can do something with it? It doesn't have to mean taking a lot of time, but actually just like experimenting. The whole idea of experiments is that you can go back on it. It's not a forever change. So let's take some more risk. And as agilists, we like to reduce risk. That's the idea, isn't it? It's like we have these complex ideas, we deliver regularly, and it reduces risk. But let's take real risk. Let's stop faffing around with this marginal risk. I think let's think of some risky ideas whilst we're getting bored, being creative, and do something a little bit different. Do we think that we can get a bit risky?
Yeah.
Okay, with the grater. Think of the Wright brothers. Do you remember? Nobody will remember this. The Wright brothers, when they came up with the idea, they were like, you know what, we're going to fly people in the air from location A to B. I reckon that's what they said. Who flew here today? Yesterday. Yeah. Sorry, I'm on the wrong day. Who has flown? Better questions. We'll just go. Yes, we're all taking a plane. Well, if they listened to that crazy idea, they were, oh, actually, you know what? It's ridiculous. You're right. Not going to do it. Then we wouldn't actually be here. Hopefully, somebody else would have come up with the idea. And the last one is take away money. Now, this is the craziest one of all, I think, but definitely something that you can do and a habit that we can get into. And I'm not talking about taking away money, as in your salary. I'm not that crazy. I'm not talking about taking away benefits, bonuses, blah, 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 none of that sort of stuff. I'm talking about taking away the question of how much money do I have to create that product or that project? What's my budget? All of that sort of stuff. Now, I have quite a bit of experience with this, because when I was around about 22, I think I met with my boss. My boss said, Helen, you're the girl for this job, or you're the lady for this job. I said, great, it's exciting. He's like, meet me in prison next week at 10 a.m. Thinking, right, okay, I really don't like the idea of this. Anyway, didn't ask any questions. I was 22. I was like, cool, yeah, go to prison. So I went to prison. And he said, great, so we've got this idea where we're going to lay some simulated environments, some track in the prison. And for people that are soon to be released from prison, we're going to train them up so that they can come in and they have a purpose when they leave work. So that reduces the amount of reoffending. And I was like, this is something that I would love, actually. This is great. Had a big old discussion of it. I was really riled up and ready to go. I was like, how much time do I have? And he was like, you've got all the time in the world. I was like, okay, this just gets better and better. I was like, well, how much money do I have? Because these things cost a lot of money. He was like, you have a 0 budget. And I was like, right, okay, I just want to recap. You've got me here. I'm in prison. I'm assuming I am released. But I've got to build a track so that people can actually train on in order to be released and have some sort of skill, and you're not giving any money to me. He said, yeah, that's right. So I had, I think, a 5-hour journey home. It was very boring. Everybody knows that you don't get internet on the trains here. So I was just sitting there being like, oh my God, I need to try and impress him. I need to try and do this, that, and the other. And it came to me in that moment of boredom, and also lots of thinking, because I had time, that I could call all the depots in the area. I was quite good mates with, good colleagues with the people in my area. I said, hey, I've got this amazing purpose, told them about the prison, told them about reducing reoffending, better society. If you don't care about those guys, you care about society. And they were like, great, cool, yeah, we'll help you. And I was like, great. So any time they did off bits of track that they was just going to go to waste or landfill, we would take it and we'd use it within the prison. So I was able to actually install a training environment later down the line with equipment and with no real cash, which usually would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. So I challenge you next time, don't let money be a blocker for you. But instead of thinking and putting all the time into, okay, so how much is this going to cost, use that time to have time to think, to actually go and do something without a budget. Cool. So I want to come back to this, really, this squiggly mess. This is our organisation. This is my head, your head, maybe, our organisation. And this is the time to think. Doing things in small experiments. It may or may not work. But in my experience of doing this with teams, it really, really does work. And the feedback and the understanding and being able to actually use our brains and our creativity differently is quite exciting. So if you start in one place, just watch it kind of ripple effect across and giving yourself time to think, making those little holes in some of those squiggly brains. And that's really it from me. So thank you very much. And yeah.